So one of the challenges we're finding is more and more people are submitting resumes that are using GenAI to populate a lot of content on there. Some of it is actually quite fictional. Instead, saying that I've actually done this. Um, as much as we're looking at using GenAI to uh, I guess accelerate the qualification portion of it. We're seeing the immediate counter to that, which is just increase in resumes that are written. You can tell with a lot more generative AI, and even the correspondence that we have. So that leads us to, oh well, the person has a English speaking level of whatever 5 out of 10 or 6, and it's only when you get through the fit call and you start getting through quite a bit of sort of assessment questions do you start to really see that there's a gap there. And so again, how do it's sometimes I'm like, well, if they can keep using those tools and do the job, then should I still proceed? Or but then if I have a communication challenge where I can't explain my problem or the client can't explain the problem, how do we get around it?
I'll let you take a stab at that one first, Jamie. It's something we're actually hearing a lot. Like it is a significant issue right now, but I'd love to hear your thoughts, Jamie.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really valid, and I can see it in so many different components of the recruitment practice, right? Like it's even in, now if you post a job, let's say, right? And it's powered by AI, there's all these tools and tech, like someone will post a job and 1 hour later there's 300 applicants, right? You have to question, okay, are there actually 300 qualified applicants? Probably not. But are there actually 300 applicants who naturally and organically found their way to that posting because of what they're searching for and so on? Or is it powered by AI and it's like pushing the job posting in front of people who aren't qualified, therefore it's prompting them? So there's all these things. And then you've got the situation at hand, Christian, that you mentioned about, okay, so now I'm getting somebody who looks amazing on paper. And I think that this, and then also, and maybe they are amazing. They've obviously figured out how to, work their inputs, and here we are. And you were left with that question about, okay, well, if they can keep doing this, then maybe they're great for the job, right? But I think what it comes down to is that there's really, like, we're at the end of the day, like, we're humans hiring humans. And I think that the practice of recruitment and the practice of hiring, and the future of work, I think there's some really standard practices that we shouldn't be straying from, and really ignoring, or moving too far away from. And I think that is really comes down to alignment. So really understanding exactly what the role is that you're hiring for, and identifying based on someone's experience and by way of interviewing, right? And really understanding, and doing research on your end. And this is also, again, why recruitment's never going to be easy. I think that anything that can be disrupted will be disrupted. And I think HR and recruitment in the future of work has been on that chopping block for a very long time. But I think that the part that makes it the most challenging is you can't remove really human-based practices from the business of recruitment and HR. So it's what we're doing now or before generative AI that we have to still rely on, just knowing that we're in a different arena, right? So I know that doesn't make it, there's not a simple answer to it. It's just, I think, recognizing that it's on both sides. So the amount of applicants you're getting powered by AI, sometimes the amount of, or the accuracy potentially powered by AI as well.
But
Yeah,
sorry, Mark, I just want to add a second to that. One of the challenges is if I have to do this for 30 people and I have 2 weeks to get these people hired, that compounds the problem, because without AI, you're really, you're having to use a huge amount of people, right, on a recruitment side to do that kind of recruiting. Whereas if it was, I don't know, 10 people in a month,
Right.
Then you can kind of, you can pace that properly, right? So that's why generative AI usually comes in when we have those huge rushes for a project or something, we need 30 people in 2 weeks, and everybody's scrambling, right? And that's why we lean on existing lists and, you know, all this kind of stuff. But anyway, sorry, Mark, go ahead.
No, I think it's a question that has probably come up in most of the sessions that we've had, especially when there's kind of a recruiting discussion. And I think there's a lot of unintended consequences that we're not necessarily thinking about. I was actually at a conference in Stockholm recently, and there was a really amazing speaker. Her name was Vivian Ming. She was she's actually a professor at Stanford, but also a well-known entrepreneur and has worked in kind of the AI space for most of her career. But she was actually talking about this issue, and I'll just bring in, there was another study that showed that the biggest productivity gains are it's actually raising the floor, right? So GenAI is raising the floor. There's a bunch of issues here. So the question was, will employers start hiring somebody, like you said, that maybe is less experienced but can use GenAI to level up to a level? Maybe they have some salary, some cost benefits there, etc. We're seeing a lot in some industries, like for example, where GenAI in some applications might be able to replace like an articling lawyer in writing a contract quickly. But then how do any lawyers become expert lawyers if they can't get experience in processes? So there are a lot of questions, I think, that we're still going to be struggling with in this area of how it is impacting like junior hires, how we can actually use the tools to increase productivity. But then there's these unintended consequences, like if everybody stops hiring juniors, or depending just on AI to fill that gap, what are the implications of that? So I think there are a lot of kind of unanswered questions and that we're going to be working through for some time. But we did ask, it is interesting because you can have some highly, and you know this, Christian, I know ID Fusion and Christian for those the others on the call. But you've done a lot of international recruiting, and there's some really top talent where their language capability may be holding them back. And so being able to maybe use generative AI in some applications like that, when you know the person is, first of all, being truthful on their applications, not obscuring, and so on. And I think it becomes really interesting as well to think of from that perspective. Can you hire somebody that maybe has less language capability, power with, and augmented by generative AI to be really productive? So I think, the jury is out, but it's certainly things that we're going to be faced with that we haven't been able to work through or haven't had to work through before, for sure. I know a lot of the employment agencies that we work with are absolutely encouraging their candidates to use it for cover letter and resume improvement, because that's something typically a person would do working with a client, right? But anybody obviously that's submitting things that are not true in the resume, that's a huge red flag right off the top. But yeah, the process of actually being able to work through it is an issue.